let me first show you a video what happened to our industry, because it was quite some things happened, but let me first show this one. So this is what happened to our industry. Imagine you lose 2/3 of your top line from one day to the other. That has a big impact. How will you deal with that? What would you do? For us, the lockdown came and almost all planes stopped flying from one day to the other. Everybody thought it's just a few weeks, like the previous coronaviruses or like the volcano eruption in Iceland. But pandemic lasted 2 years. So it had a very big impact on our company, on our business. So let me ask you a question here. Who here in the audience was impacted by the pandemic, either directly or indirectly? Can I see some hands? Yes, probably almost all of you. And that's also what happened to our business, any other industry as well. We were very, very much impacted. So today I'm going to talk to you about what we did in terms of priorities. We had to refocus as a company because the impact was that big. And I will talk to you about how we survived by being agile, responding quickly, and also working on a scalable model, and how we are preparing ourselves now for the future. So let me first start with IAG. Not everybody knows IAG. IAG International Airline Groups was founded by Iberia and British Airways back in 2011. In the meantime, we did quite some other acquisitions as well. We count now up to 6 airlines in our group. And you see also GBS. GBS was created in 2014, and it was created as a separate operating company in the group. And we have also a loyalty program, an important one as well, with our own currency, Avios, for people who travel with one of our group airlines. You should know this. And Avios is even expanding, so there are other airlines not part of the group adopting to our currency, like Qatar Airways recently announced that earlier this year. And I think, like Angela mentioned, also GBS is very much involved in sustainability, driving sustainability for the group. So we're leading that one, and also IAG is the first airline who committed to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. It's difficult for us because our industry is a big polluter in that sense, but it's also not so easy to move out of that. Let me share a bit about GBS. So GBS was created in 2014, and we have a very diverse workforce. We're based out of multiple countries. We provide creative and innovative solutions to drive sustainable transformation for the group. And if you look at our services, it's focused around 4 areas. So procurement is focusing mainly on the indirect spend. We have airports where the majority of the direct spend is managed, and also the things which are happening around the airports. Operations, which is 80% finance. And we have then IT and digital, providing group-wide IT solutions, platforms, etc. And each operating company benefits from our centralized model in terms of efficiencies, driving automation, and economies of scale. As I mentioned before, pandemic hit us pretty hard as a company, so we had to focus on other things. And we had a very strong liquidity position before we moved into the pandemic. If you compare with other airlines, other European airlines were pretty strong. So we wanted to keep this position. But on the other hand, losing 2/3 of your top line, you need to do something with your business. You need to look into your variable costs, fixed costs, but also how do we set up our organization? How can we survive? On the other side, there were also opportunities. If you look at our businesses like cargo loyalty, they grew tremendously during COVID, during the pandemic. Also, GBS grew with around 30%. And last but not least, we were looking in our processes. How can we change our processes? How can we automate parts to be ready for the future? And this is a bit about the journey of GBS. We started in 2014. We started moving things into GBS and into our newly created headquarters in Krakow, Poland. But then we moved into the ERP part. All our airlines, some of them are close to 100 years or over 100 years old already. So it's full with legacy systems. So as GBS, we started implementing a central finance system and a central procurement system. For that, we chose SAP S/4HANA and Ariba. But we started driving this, and we implemented it for around 70% of our businesses. And then disruption came. Then the pandemic started. And it was not only pandemic as a disruption, we had also Brexit coming in as well. Another disruption for us. And that led to the situation that we needed to change. We needed to focus on operations, surviving, keeping things running. And then, more or less, our journey stopped for about 2 years, only trying to survive. And now it's ready. Since the beginning of this year, we created a vision. Where do we want to go? We revised the old one also. And we're now making the steps to create a plan. The plan is there, and we're now preparing for the implementation, which will start more or less from next year. So we're looking into automation, digitization, and we're looking into the BPO partnership. And we have multiple BPOs, so we need to also look into that. We need to drive also performance management and continuous improvement, which was also lacking in the past 2 years, because everything purely survive, keeping operations running. So if we look at GBS, what GBS did during pandemic, because we played an important role. We grew with 30% in terms of people. And we were the only organization in the group who had full insight across all the operating companies on cash flow positions, working capital positions, etc. So we were considered as the working capital hub to drive liquidity in the company. And we focused on our payables, receivables. Payables not always in favor of our suppliers, of course. That's also fair to be said. We had to scrutinize on that, and even to get more control, more grip on our payments process, we decided to insource the whole payment process. So we took it back from our service provider and took it back in-house to have full control and ownership on the payment process. If you look at the procurement side, on the direct and indirect spend, they were focusing on renegotiations with suppliers, getting better prices, lower prices, discounts, getting extended payment terms. As some suppliers we had to pay in advance, so we moved them to arrear as well. And what can we do there? So everything was focused on what can we contribute to the group and how can we do that in the best way. In terms of scalability, because we as IAG GBS, together with our BPO, we needed to move into a scalable model, and we need to be able to scale up and down. Here is an example of scaling up and down. That's around what we call right to fly. So all the countries had different entry requirements. If you want to travel to a country, you need to fulfill all the paperwork, etc. So we had to set up this very fast, because if we wouldn't have done that, people get stranded, they will not be allowed, or they will be sent back. So we needed to take some urgent action there. So we set up a process, initially manually, together with our BPO. And 4 or 5 months later, we had 24/7 service running with the BPO, and they scaled up from scratch to 180 FTEs. After that, we looked into automation, and we optimized our processes, and today we have around 35 people still working in this area. So part is automated, part of the restrictions has disappeared, but there are still quite some countries who have restrictions out there. You need to know that every country is different in itself, so it's not a one-fits-all kind of strategy. So this scalability was important for us. And what was key for us to change, normally IAG is not known for short decision lines, but for this program, we had very short decision lines. That was important, and the scalability of the BPO. Working with the BPO and getting things quickly set up, that was crucial in this time. So coming out of the pandemic, we had to reassess ourselves. Are we fit for future? We didn't focus too much on strategy. We lost quite some people in the organization as well. So do we have the right people still on board to drive it? Everybody in the organization was focused on operations, running, keeping things running, keeping the motor running. And we know there is a gap. We know there is a gap. That's the most important. We know there is a gap, and we need to invest in capabilities. Otherwise, we will not be able to drive it forward. If you look at the BPO, we have multiple BPOs. Not all of them were able to scale down, scale up, to move with us. Some of them had big difficulties there. So we needed to look also in our BPO, what can we do there differently? And also our automation stagnated during pandemic. So in that sense, we focus now on accelerating our digitization and automation. We're looking into consolidation of the BPOs. And we're looking also in driving operational excellence in our organization. But we need to invest in capabilities. That's one of the key things. So if you look at the vision, what we want to implement is a so-called control tower concept. I can tell you from one of my experiences, I visited quite some locations of my current company, previous companies, etc. And in one of my visits, I went to a large factory, a big factory, not here in Europe, outside Europe, but what was happening there, I saw lots of robots driving around. Robots packaging the finished goods at the end of the assembly line, putting on a pallet, and another robot picking up the pallet, putting it in the rack. And what was there? There were 15 to 20 operators working there. They all had multiple screens in front of them, and they had real-time indicators with lights blinking whether something went wrong. And when I was there at that moment, also one of the lights started blinking red. And we heard some sounds somewhere on the floor. And what happened, it was a lighting factory with the long lights, fluorescent lights. And something was blocking the line, and all the lights were just falling on the floor. I think this kind of concept, people say, yeah, that might work in a factory environment, but it will not work in an office environment. And I think people are wrong. It works in an office environment. And it will work also for your companies. It requires highly touchless processes, so we need to aim for highly touchless processes. We need to have real-time data, because if you don't have real-time data, you cannot act quickly. And, and you need also predictive analytics. You need to move to predictive analytics. You need to know what's coming to you. And last but not least, you also need to look at your staff, because for these kind of things, you need different people who analyze the process, etc. You might need a totally different skill set from what you have now. How we're going to get there, let me explain now in the following. So if we want to have control and visibility over the full life cycle of a transaction and visibility in the impact on cash flow, financial commitments, etc., it starts with transparency. And we need to have full insights in our end-to-end process. And the real-time data needs to provide actionable insights. That's key. And we need to know also where to apply problem solving and where to automate. If you look at standardization, standardization it cannot be a goal in itself. You first need to understand your process. Do you understand how the process looks like? And not the siloed ones, but the end-to-end process. Where is the waste in the process, the non-value-added steps? And what is after that remains? Yeah, probably it's still a very complex process. Many of our companies have very complicated processes. So let's simplify the process first and then put a standard. And then implement this standard very rigorously. After that, with automation, you focus on automating a standard. Or sometimes automation can bring also a new standard itself, like we implemented Ariba. We came from legacy systems, so everybody started working in the same kind of standard. Here is an example of what we do in terms of automation, how we future-proof ourselves in terms of automation. I will not go through all of that, but there are examples like transparency, like flight orders is for us important. And we register everything on flight order level. We want to have instant insights in our route profitability or even flight profitability. Which flights are most profitable? Also on data, I heard also in the previous session on data. Data is important. We're the only entity in the group who has full insights, full access to all data across all operating companies. So we're building this global data lake to provide the analytics. And we want to be seen as the data analytics powerhouse of the group, drive value creation for the group. And if we have our predictive insights, we can even improve our forecasting models. But looking at Control Tower, we need to think also about this touchless. How do we do touchless? And we can implement tools, we can automate things, you can do things with robots, chatbots, etc. But we need also to look into artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities. Otherwise, we will never get to a highly touchless process. Our aim is to get to a level of 80–85%. Let me now move to the BPO. And we have 3 BPOs. At the moment, all of them have different segments where they deliver services, but all of them have also a finance part in them. One of them is related to legacy system, but the other 2 are providing services in the finance space. In that sense, we also want to see how can we further improve this process. There is not too much automation done currently, and we need to move forward with automating our processes. We need to have an agile partner who responds quickly to the market situation, like what happened to us with the pandemic. There was one example of one supplier who was able to immediately scale down together with us and scale up when needed. And was also providing a 24/7 kind of service to us. We could reach them any moment of the day. And that's the spirit of partnership. That's what we want to have. So that's why we're looking into consolidation of the partnership. And we run an RFP for that in the beginning of the year. We have selected our preferred supplier, and we will, by the end of Q1 next year, we will have moved to one new supplier. And we call this the kind of next generation BPO contract. But if you take into consideration touchless, you think about 85% touchless, then there's only 15%, let's say, exception handling remaining with the BPO. If you think about technology, we will bring in the technology. We don't use technology of the BPO because we want to be independent. So with all these measures, you will reduce the dependency on the BPO tremendously. So in that sense, we were very clear to the BPO as well. You will get this next generation contract, but it will also be a final generation contract. So you have the incentive, you get the contract, we both have the incentive to automate to the max, to optimize our processes, and at the end of this contract, we will take the things back in-house. So we will insource the remainder of the activities. That's for the finance space. For the space outside finance, where we interact with consumers, and where we had the scaling up, scaling down during pandemic as well, setting up 180 people to deal with those kind of things, that's not so easy to do within an in-house environment. The BPO can help a lot in that sense. So for these kind of processes, the customer-facing processes, we decided to keep them with the BPO. But for finance, we want to have this kind of final contract and then take it back in-house. When it comes to customer experience, you see here four important elements. Business outcomes was also mentioned already before. Looking at value creation for the company. How will we provide value to the company? In finance, we have finance operations, FP&A. FP&A is not there where it should be. It's very much focused on data, getting things clear, but not providing the actionable insights. On processes, we need to look at our end-to-end process. We're used to working in silos and looking in silos how to optimize. That will not work. If you really want to go to the future to touchless process, you need to look at your end-to-end process. Operational excellence is all about lean excellence, but also driving performance management. How do we do our performance management? So we will be, or we have been implementing already daily huddles, virtual visual boards, and all the things to get this process started in the organization. And also continuous improvement. We need to focus a lot on continuous improvement. We need to train people, we need to educate them, and make sure they think always from an end-to-end perspective. Last but not least, people. I think people is most important in any GBS organization. Our assets are people. So how do we create a high-performance culture? And then taking into consideration that with a control tower, with data analytics powerhouse, you need probably different qualifications, different people. So attracting and retaining high-caliber talents is paramount to our success. Without that, we cannot move forward. And all that together should lead to the optimum customer satisfaction or customer experience. Important to mention, our future will always be uncertain to a certain extent. Many things have happened. 12 years ago, we had the eruption of the volcano in Iceland, which blocked our transatlantic flights for a few weeks. We have some viruses, etc. We have now unstable fuel prices, the high fuel price, etc., which also has an impact on our company, on our business. Think about the economic and geopolitical situation. Think about double-digit inflation in Europe. How will it impact our industry, or your industries even? The geopolitical situation, the war in Russia, between Russia and Ukraine. Think about, we used to fly, the shortest route to fly from London to Tokyo was via the Russian Arctic. That's no longer possible. So we need to find different routes, either go south or go via the Arctic and the other way around. So it's not so easy, and we might lose our competitive advantage compared to other airlines in that sense. So it's not so easy. All the staff shortages we had. During pandemic, it was rather easy to reduce people. But trying to hire new people takes a lot of time. We need to do also background checks, because in the airline it's all about safety. Also, all of you, your safety. And then the airports had their problems. Think about the luggage, which was left everywhere, the capacity problems at the airport. Maybe you have experienced this yourself as well. And climate change is also still one of the things which will probably hamper us. There are not yet good solutions how to reduce the carbon emissions. Yeah, we can look into the fuel from biomass, but it's very expensive. It will drive up the prices of flights. So all these changes require that GBS moves to keeps this scalable model. We need to have solid contingency plans as well in place. We need to have high standards for that. And we need a very effective and efficient sourcing model. Important to say that although there is uncertainty, it brings us also some new things, fresh perspective. It brings us the challenge of doing something differently. So today I talked with you about what was the impact of pandemic, how we changed our priorities, how we survived by being agile and moving into a scalable model, and how we are future-proofing ourselves in terms of automation, BPO, and customer experience. And we need to be resilient, but we need to embrace the uncertainty which is out there. And what we do know is that we don't know how the future will look like. If we think about Elon Musk, planes to Mars probably soon, or maybe self-flying, supersonic, hypersonic planes as well. But there might be also some virus coming up which doesn't last 2 years, but 25 years. Who knows? We don't know. And we do know that uncertainty brings opportunities to all of us. And we do know that people like to travel, either for business or for leisure. Think about yourselves here, all the people here present in Lisbon. You have decided to travel to come here. You could have joined online as well. So personally, I like to travel as well. So I've traveled over more than 60 countries in the world. I've seen a lot, but I want to still see more. And because travel takes us out of our comfort zone. Travel inspires us to see, to taste, and try new things. But it also challenges us to adapt to new surroundings, to engage with different cultures, different people. And it enables us to share meaningful experiences with our friends and beloved ones. So travel will always be there. Travel is great. Everybody likes it. And we hope that you're now ready for takeoff as well. Thank you very much. Sorry for that.
Great, thank you so much, Leon. There were a lot of things that resonated there, and you've certainly been on quite the journey. I'm actually working with a client who I think I spotted over there, yes, who I think would be very interested to know how you went from scaling up and scaling down, and all the lessons you learned from that as well. So what's coming in on the QR code? So here we go. Airlines were highly criticized for not refunding passengers quickly enough. How did GBS step up to help you? Sorry, it's a bit of a difficult one there.
No, that's an easy one. The majority of our refund process is also with the BPO. So we help there also to scale up, to speed up the process of getting the refunds in. But yeah, in the beginning it took quite some time because there were quite a lot of cancellations, etc. People tried to rebook. And that's why our whole accounting process around revenue accounting is pretty complicated with all refunds, rebookings,
imagine.
cancellations, etc.
Yeah, I think people have become more forgiving. I mean, I know that there was a few of our GBS team whose bags didn't quite arrive, and we had a lot of fun on WhatsApp sharing our clothing. So another one from Leon. No, I think they have changed the auto cue. And I always get blamed for not following the auto cue. Well, Leon, it looks like that is all we have time for.
Okay.
But thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.